climate change, and enhance sustainable development. Some 77 years ago, the founding members placed within the United Nations Charter the principles and the norms of international law that have successfully guided us ever since. There is nothing more important now than to return to the foundational principles that lie at the root of this universal organization. In particular, we must rethink the linkages between three primordial principles: the sovereign equality of states, the territorial integrity of states, and peaceful coexistence between states. These three principles are interdependent. To respect one is to respect the other two. To undermine one is to undermine the other two. When the global disarmament regime, both conventional and nuclear, weakens, these three principles are threatened. Conversely, as these three principles are respected, they grow in strength. Together, they become the basis for greater interstate cooperation at every level: sub-regional, regional, and global. This is the global prosperity dividend. This system of values embodied in the United Nations remains a beacon of hope for millions of people in different parts of our planet. We must staunchly defend these values, the United Nations as its core, and the spirit of cooperation which underpins it. In other words, we cannot simply shrug our shoulders and agree with polarization and division. We cannot afford indecision on narrow interests or detrimental to this common heritage and our collective good. Too much is at stake. Therefore, Kazakhstan stands ready to cooperate with all relevant actors in a spirit of inclusiveness, multilateralism, and goodwill. I am convinced that the challenges of our time can only be overcome by countries acting together. To achieve our shared goals, we must go forward in the following directions. The multiple and often interconnected crises of recent years have exposed significant gaps in global governance. They have highlighted the need to modernize and reform the United Nations. The UN must be better prepared for future challenges and opportunities. In this respect, Kazakhstan welcomed the proposals in the report of the Secretary General entitled Our Common Agenda. This is an important opportunity to reaffirm the Charter of the United Nations, reinvigorate multilateralism, boost implementation of existing commitments, agree on concrete solutions to new challenges, and restore trust among member states. We look forward to contributing to the consultations at the ministerial meeting next year and to the holding of the 2024 Summit of the Future. We must move from simply responding to global challenges and crises to preventing and better predicting emerging trends and integrating our assessments into strategic planning and policy making. For this very purpose, Kazakhstan proposed 30 years ago the idea of convening the Conference on Interaction and Confidence-Building Measures in Asia. In the context of new challenges and threats, we hope to transform SICA into full-fledged international organization at the upcoming summit in October in Astana to contribute to global mediation and peacemaking. With only 8 years until 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals are hampered by the COVID-19 pandemic, a triple planetary crisis, it means climate change, biodiversity loss and pollution, and conflicts around the world. We need to get back on track before it's too late. Our top priority must be build resilience to future turmoil and ensure sustainable, equitable, and inclusive recovery. To this end, we need a frank dialogue between East and West and a new global security paradigm based on the principles of mutual trust and multifaceted cooperation. Given the current crisis and increased geopolitical tensions, there is an acute need for a process under the United Nations auspices that can lead to détente and conflict prevention. Kazakhstan has suffered terribly from past nuclear weapons testing, so we understand very clearly the dangers of escalating tensions between nuclear powers. For this reason, nuclear disarmament has become a key part of Kazakh foreign policy, and we will be continuously struggling for a world free of nuclear arsenals. Despite some progress in this area, unfortunately, the whole record is not that positive. We are alarmed by the increased rivalry and rhetoric of nuclear states. We are also concerned at the lack of progress made by the NPT review conferences. Elaborating new mechanisms to ensure disarmament and non-proliferation is a daunting task ahead. Similarly, the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the urgent need to manage and reduce biological risks and dangers. It should be of universal concern that we still rely on the Biological Weapons Convention, now 50 years old, without any effort to create an agency or body for international cooperation. In this context, I would like to reiterate my earlier proposal to establish an international agency for biological safety. Along with threats to international security, climate change requires greater international cooperation and solidarity as well. Around the world, people are facing existential threats from weather and environmental change. If we are to turn this tide, we need more action, and we need it fast. Many of us have taken bold steps already. In Kazakhstan, we have pledged the total transformation of the oil and coal-dependent energy sector into a net zero economy by 2060. To save our planet, we need investment at greater levels than we have ever seen. However, climate action cannot come at the expense of development or modernization. Therefore, at COP27 later this year, member states, as well as the global business community, must once again scale up their commitment to greater climate finance. That agenda relates directly to the global food security crisis. My country, as the world's seventh largest grain producer, is the breadbasket of Central Asia. We are committed to utilizing this agricultural potential to fight global food insecurity. Kazakhstan will continue to act as a reliable supplier of grain and other food staples, first of all to the poorest countries. It also intends to grow its cooperation with the Islamic Food Security Organization located in Kazakhstan, as well as other United Nations agencies. It's imperative in this connection to exclude food and fertilizers from any sanctions and restrictions whatsoever. Once again, Current economic and social upheavals require a collective effort. Commitment to the 2030 Agenda remains an integral part of our national and global agenda. In addition, fair trade regimes are crucial to global economic recovery. In this context, I would like to commend the constructive decisions coming out of the 12th WTO Ministerial Conference chaired by Kazakhstan. The current geopolitical situation also highlights the importance of a reliable and diversified global transit and transport infrastructure. We are seeing this in our own region. Kazakhstan, the largest landlocked developing country, is becoming a vital Asian land corridor to Europe. The Trans-Caspian International Transport Route, or Middle Corridor, has received a new impetus. We expect cargo volume through Kazakhstan to increase significantly in the years ahead. We must ensure that the Caspian Sea becomes a sea of peace and new opportunities. In the months ahead, Kazakhstan will help mitigate the most immediate impacts of limited access to energy and critical raw materials caused by trade and supply chain disruptions. In the long term, we aim to diversify our sources of energy with a particular focus on green hydrogen and renewables. Speaking about Central Asia, we should bear in mind that it has already become a region of vast opportunities for international cooperation. Together with our Central Asian partners, we are committed to strengthening political interaction and deepening economic ties to move our region forward. We agreed to coexist as good neighbors and diversify our cooperation. This credo is based on our significant natural and agricultural resources, human capital, transport and transit potential. We are a buffer market between East and West, South and North. We intend to work together with all stakeholders to address a pressing regional agenda that includes climate change, the Aral Sea, rational use of water resources, border delimitation, combating extremism, and expanding intra-regional trade. That's why we consider it important to establish the United Nations Regional Center for SDGs for Central Asia and Afghanistan in Almaty. Kazakhstan sees the future Afghanistan as a truly independent, neutral, united, prosperous state living in peace with its neighbors. Therefore, we support the difficult process of nation building in that country, including life-saving humanitarian assistance. Dear colleagues, as President of Kazakhstan, I am absolutely committed to build a just Kazakhstan, one in which every citizen has the same opportunities, rights, and protections. Justice in my country must prevail. Law and order will become pillars of our society. The most important part of this path is transformative political reform. Presidential and parliamentary elections will be held in Kazakhstan over the coming months. According to my proposal, the presidential mandate has been limited to one 7-year term. It's a real breakthrough in developing democracy in Kazakhstan. At the same time, we will be firmly adhering to my formula of a strong president, authoritative parliament, accountable government. I am convinced this formula excellently serves the national interests of Kazakhstan. We also aim to demonopolize the economy. We are taking steps to ensure that the wealthiest in our society play their part in our quest for a just Kazakhstan, along with diversifying our economy and increasing investments in human capital. Recently, I initiated the creation of a National Fund for Children. Starting in 2024, 50% of the investment income from the National Welfare Fund will be allocated to special savings accounts for children until their adulthood. These funds could be used for education or housing purposes. A special private charity fund for the people of Kazakhstan also now provides assistance to ordinary citizens for healthcare, education, and social security aims. We aim to further expand the empowerment and participation of women in economic and public life. Comprehensive national transformation is not a simple process, and there will be certainly pitfalls and bumps in the road. But if we are firmly to meet the expectations of Kazakh citizens, we cannot deviate from this strategic path. Over the past 3 years, we have carried out substantial transformations through 4 packages of political reforms. For example, new laws passed by the Parliament simplified political parties' registration and reduced the threshold for parties to enter Parliament from 7% to 5%. To promote a wider involvement of citizens in governance, there is now a mandatory 30% quota for women and young people in electoral party lists. To make local administration more accountable, local mayors are now directly elected. To foster a more open culture between society and government, we have changed the law on peaceful assembly. Government authorization is no longer required. Following its international commitments on the fundamental right to life and human dignity, Kazakhstan abolished the death penalty. A just Kazakhstan depends on our multi-ethnic and multi-confessional solidarity. The unity in diversity principle will be preserved at all costs. Last week, the 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions was successfully held in Kazakhstan. The Congress once again highlighted the importance of religious tolerance, dialogue, and mediation. We are ready to build bridges and provide platforms for dialogue wherever needed. Dear friends, this year marks 30 years of Kazakhstan-United Nations partnership. The organization has contributed strongly to the formation and strengthening of independent Kazakhstan. Over that period, we have worked for the aims of the Charter in all major UN organs, from ECOSOC to the Human Rights Council and to the Security Council. Kazakhstan will remain at the forefront of advancing a more modern, efficient, transparent, and accountable organization. Never in history have we had such a need for responsible leadership for the next generations. Remembering our past makes us responsible for our future. Together with you, we will spare no effort toward building a safer, more sustainable, and prosperous global community. Thank you.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan for the statement just made and request the protocol to escort His Excellency. And before proceeding, may I just kindly remind delegations that the agreed time limits for the national interventions are 15 minutes, and you are kindly requested to adhere to this agreement. The Assembly will hear an address by His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, Emir of the State of Qatar. I request the protocol to escort His Highness. On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank and On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, Amir of State of Qatar, and invite him to address the Assembly.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سعادة رئيس الجمعية العامة، سعادة الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة، السيدات والسادة، يسرني بداية أن يهنئ سعادة السيد كاسابا كوروشي على توليه رئاسة الدورة 77 للجمعية العامة، متمنيا له النجاح. كما أعرب عن تقديرنا لسعادة السيد عبد الله شاهد رئيس الدورة 76 لما بذله من جهود، ونثمن الجهود التي يبذلها سعادة السيد أنطونيو غوتيريش الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة من أجل تعزيز دور الأمم المتحدة وتحقيق أهدافها. السيد الرئيس، تحول عالمنا إلى قرية عالمية تتداخل فيها همومنا وتتشابك قضايانا، ومع أن عالمنا تغير بوتيرة سريعة لناحية انتشار آثار أي حدث بيئي أو أزمة اقتصادية أو مواجهة عسكرية على المستوى العالمي، إلا أن مقاربتنا وأساليبنا لم تتطور بالوتيرة ذاتها لتواكب هذه التغيرات الثورية. وسواء كان الرأي أن العالم أحادي القطب أو متعدد الأقطاب، فإن السياسة الدولية ما زالت تدار بمنطق الدول المتفاوتة القدرات والمصالح والأولويات، وليس بمنطق العالم الواحد والإنسانية الواحدة. وأقصد تحديداً إدارة الأزمات العالمية من منظور مصالح ضيقة قصيرة المدى، وتهميش القانون الدولي، وإدارة الاختلاف بموجب توازنات القوى، وليس على أساس ميثاق الأمم المتحدة واحترام سيادة الدول. كما أقصد عدم توفر آليات كافية للردع ومعاقبة المعتدين على سيادة الدول، وعجز المجتمع الدولي عن فرض التسويات حين يرفضها الطرف القوي في أي نزاع. في هذه الظروف تبرز أهمية الحكمة والعقلانية في سلوك القادة والتمسك بمبادئ العدالة والإنصاف في العلاقات بين الدول. السيد الرئيس، ندرك تماما تعقيدات الصراع بين روسيا وأوكرانيا والبعد الدولي له، ومع ذلك ندعو إلى وقف إطلاق النار ومباشرة السعي إلى حل سلمي للنزاع، فهذا ما سوف ينتهي إليه الأمر على كل حال مهما استمرت الحرب. ودوامها لن يغير هذه النتيجة، بل سوف يزيد من عدد الضحايا، كما يضاعف آثارها الوخيمة على أوروبا وروسيا والاقتصاد العالمي عموما. وعلى صعيد آخر، لا أعتقد أن مندوبي الدول الحاضرين يحتاجون إلى التذكير بأن القضية الفلسطينية ما زالت دون حل، وأنه في ظل عدم تطبيق قرارات الشرعية الدولية ومع التغير المتواصل للواقع على الأرض، أصبح الاحتلال الاستيطاني يتخذ سياسة فرض الأمر الواقع، مما قد يغير قواعد الصراع وكذلك شكل التضامن العالمي مستقبلا. ومن هنا أجدد التأكيد على تضامننا الكامل مع الشعب الفلسطيني الشقيق في تطلعه للعدالة، كما أكرر التأكيد على ضرورة تحمل مجلس الأمن لمسؤوليته بإلزام إسرائيل بإنهاء احتلال الأراضي الفلسطينية وإقامة دولة فلسطينية على حدود عام 1967 وعاصمتها القدس الشرقية. وفي منطقتنا أيضا عجز المجتمع الدولي عن محاسبة مجرمي الحرب في سوريا على ما ارتكبت أيديهم، وإمعانا في الخذلان أصبح البعض يسعى لطي صفحة مأساة الشعب السوري دون مقابل، ويتجاهل التضحيات الكبيرة التي قدمها هذا الشعب المنكوب دون حل يحقق تطلعاته ووحدة سوريا والسلم
united Syrian people without fulfilling its
ولا
aspirations,
يجوز
without ensuring
أن
the
تقبل
unity
الأمم
of
المتحدة
Syria
أن
and
يتلخص
ensuring
المسار
peace and
السياسي
security.
فيما يسمى اللجنة
The
الدستورية
United Nations
تحت رعايتها.
should not accept that the political track would be
تقدم
confined to the
القضية
so-called
السورية
Constitutional
درساً
Committee
مهماً
under its auspices.
بشأن
The Syrian
عواقب غياب
crisis
الرؤية
has
البعيدة
taught us
المدى
a very important
لدى قوى
lesson
المجتمع
about what can
الدولي
happen
الفاعلة
when the international
حين
community
يتعلق الأمر
lacks
بمعالجة
a
معاناة
long-term
الشعوب من
vision
الطغيان
in dealing
اللامحدود
with the suffering of
والفقر
people
المدقع
from unlimited
والحروب الأهلية
injustice, destitution,
أن
and
تصبح
civil
ظواهر
wars.
مرافقة لها مثل
Soon
اللجوء
enough,
هي المشكلة التي
accompanying
تحتاج
phenomena
إلى حل.
such as the refugees issues
نحن
become the
نقدر
problems
عاليا
that
دور
we
الدول التي
actually have to
استقبلت
focus on.
اللاجئين
We highly
السوريين
value
ولكن
the
لا
role
يسعنا
played by countries that
إلا أن
have
نذكر
hosted
أن
Syrian
علينا
refugees.
الالتفاف إلى
But
جذور
we have to
القضايا قبل
remind you
أن
that
تطرق
it is important to
آثارها أبواب
address
بلادنا.
the
وفي ليبيا
reasons for
نطالب
crisis
باتخاذ
before having
إجراء
to deal with
دولي وفوري
repercussions of crisis. In Libya,
لاستكمال العملية
we
السياسية
call for
والاتفاق على القاعدة
immediate
الدستورية
measures
للانتخابات
at the global
وتوحيد
level
مؤسسات
to continue
الدولة.
the political process and to agree on a constitutional basis
والجميع
for
بات يدرك
elections
أنه لا
and to
يمكن
unify
استعادة
state
الدولة
institutions. We all
دون
are
توحيد
aware
القوى
that it is
العسكرية
impossible to restore
وإعادة
the state without
تأهيل الفصائل
unifying
المسلحة في
military
جيش وطني
forces and
واحد
without
ونبذ من
rehabilitating armed
يرفض هذا
factions
الحل
into one
ومحاسبتهم.
national army.
وفي اليمن
Any party
نرى
that
بصيص أمل
rejects this
في
solution
توافق
must be
الأطراف على
renounced
هدنة
and held
مؤقتة
accountable. In
ونتطلع إلى
Yemen, there is a
وقف
glimmer of
شامل
hope
ودائم
as parties
لإطلاق
have
النار
agreed to a temporary truce.
تمهيدا
We look
للتفاوض بين
forward to
الأطراف
a
اليمنية
comprehensive, durable
على أساس
ceasefire
مخرجات الحوار
to pave
الوطني
the way
والمبادرة
for
الخليجية
negotiations among Yemeni parties
وقرارات
based on the outcomes of the national dialogue
مجلس
and the
الأمن ذات
GCC
الصلة
initiative,
وخاصة
in
القرار
addition to relevant
2216.
Security Council resolutions,
إننا
especially
نأمل أن
resolution
يتحقق التوافق الوطني في
2216.
كل من
We
العراق
hope national
ولبنان
consensus would be
والسودان
achieved in Iraq,
من
Lebanon, and
خلال ارتقاء
Sudan.
النخب السياسية إلى
Political
مستوى
elites
المهام
must be
المطلوبة
up to the
والمعروفة
task
اللازمة ليكون ممكنا تحقيق
so
تطلعات
that
المواطنين
citizens are able to achieve
والتي
their
تضمن وحدة
aspirations.
الشعب والوطن وتحفظ
This
تنوعه
would
في الوقت
ensure the unity
ذاته.
of the people, the unity of the nations, and
ليس
ensure
الأمر
also that
ممكنا فحسب،
diversity at the same time.
بل هو
This is not
واقعي
only
للغاية.
possible, this is
لو
actually extremely
توفرت
realistic
الإرادة والاستعداد
if there is
لتغليب
will,
التنازلات
if
للتوصل
there is
إلى
willingness to
تسويات
make concessions
والتخلي
to
عن نهج
reach
المحاصصة
settlements,
الحزبية
if
الطائفية
the
التي
approach
ترفضها
of quotas
الأجيال الشابة.
on ethnic grounds is abandoned, as this approach is
السيد
rejected
الرئيس،
by
نحن
young
في قطر
generations.
نؤمن
Mr.
بضرورة
President,
التوصل إلى
we in
اتفاق
Qatar
عادل
believe
حول
in the
البرنامج
need
النووي
to
الإيراني
achieve a just
يأخذ في
agreement
الاعتبار
on Iran's
مخاوف
nuclear
الأطراف كافة
program that takes into account
ويضمن
the concerns
خلو
of all
المنطقة من
parties
السلاح
and that
النووي
established a region
وحق
free
الشعب
of
الإيراني
nuclear
في الاستفادة
weapons.
من الطاقة
A
النووية
solution that
للأغراض
also
السلمية.
recognizes the right
ليس
of
لدى
the
أحد
Iranian people to
بديلاً عن
benefit
مثل هذا
from
الاتفاق
nuclear energy for
وسوف
peaceful
يكون التوصل
purposes.
إليه
There
في
is no
صالح أمن
alternative to this
واستقرار
agreement.
المنطقة
This agreement would
وسيفتح الباب
contribute to
لحوار
the
أوسع
stability
على
and security
مستوى
of the region and
الأمن
will open the
الإقليمي.
door for more
أما في
dialogue
أفغانستان
to
فإننا ندعو
achieving
جميع
regional
الأطراف إلى
security.
الحفاظ على
In
مكتسبات
Afghanistan, we call
اتفاق
upon
الدوحة
all
للسلام
parties to maintain
والبناء
the
عليه
gains of the
ومنها
Doha peace
أن لا
process
تكون
and build on
أفغانستان
it.
ملاذا للأفراد
That includes
والجماعات
ensuring that
الإرهابية
Afghanistan
والمتطرفة
does not become a safe
حتى
haven
يحظى
for
الشعب
extremist
الأفغاني
terrorist groups.
بالاستقرار والازدهار الذي
Only
طال
then
انتظاره.
the Afghani people would
لقد
enjoy the
أكدنا مرارا
long-awaited
على ضرورة
prosperity
حماية
and
المدنيين
stability.
في أفغانستان
We have
واحترام
stressed
حقوق الإنسان
time and
والمواطن
again the
بما
importance
في
of
ذلك
protecting
حقوق
civilians
المرأة
in
وحق
Afghanistan
الفتيات في
and
التعليم
respecting human rights, including
وتحقيق
women's
المصالحة
rights and the right
الوطنية
of girls to
بين
education
فئات الشعب
and
الأفغاني
achieving national
كما
reconciliation
حذرنا
among
من
all
خطورة
segments of
عزل
Afghani
أفغانستان
society.
وما
We
يمكن
also
أن
warned
يترتب عليه
against the
محاصرتها
isolation
من
of
نتائج
Afghanistan as
عكسية.
this can be counterproductive.
الحضور الكرام،
Ladies and gentlemen,
بسبب الافتقار إلى التنسيق العالمي
due
والتخطيط
to
الرشيد
lack of
والمتوازن
global
للسياسات
coordination and
المتعلقة
balanced
بالطاقة
planning
على
of
مدى
energy
عقود
policies
عديدة،
over
فإننا
many
جميعاً
decades, we are
نواجه
now
اليوم
all
أزمة طاقة
facing
غير
an
مسبوقة،
unprecedented
إذ
energy
يعيش ما
crisis.
يقرب من مليار
Around
شخص
a
في العالم
billion people
دون
around the
مصدر
world are
أساسي
living without a
موثوق
main
به
reliable
للطاقة.
energy source.
ربما كانت أزمة
The
الحرب في
crisis of
أوكرانيا
the war in
جديدة،
Ukraine might be
ولكن
new.
الأوضاع
However,
التي
having a
تتحول
political
فيها الأزمات
crisis
السياسية
turn into an
إلى
energy
أزمة طاقة
crisis,
ليست
that is
جديدة،
not new.
فقد كانت تتفاقم بصمت
This
حتى قبل
situation has
الحرب
been
في
exacerbating
أوكرانيا.
silently, even before
لقد
the war
تسببت
in
في نقص
Ukraine.
إمدادات الطاقة عقود عقود من الضغط
decades
لوقف
of
استثمارات
pressure
الطاقة
to stop
الأحفورية
investing in
قبل توفير
fossil
البدائل المستدامة
fuels
والصديقة للبيئة
before
التي يجب أن نسعى
having
إلى
sustainable
تطويرها.
alternatives,
ولا
friendly,
شك
environmentally
أن
friendly
التغير المناخي
alternatives
وحماية
that led
البيئة عموما
to
يفرضان علينا
significant
تنويع
shortage
مصادر
in
الطاقة
energy
في
supplies.
أسرع
Of
وقت.
course, climate change and
لكن
the
علينا أن
protection of the
نوفر الطاقة
environment
في
compel
هذه
us
الأثناء
all to diversify
وأن ندرك
energy
بواقعية
sources. But in the
أن
meantime, we
مستقبل
still have
الطاقة
to supply energy.
سيشمل مزيجا
We have to be
متنوعا من
realistic and we
مصادرها
have to
المستدامة
recognize that the
مثل
future
الطاقة
of energy
الشمسية
will include a combination
والهيدروجين
of different
وطاقة
energy
الرياح
sources such
والمصادر
as solar energy,
الهيدروكربونية.
hydrogen, wind energy, and also hydrocarbons.
وبفضل استثمار قطر في الغاز الطبيعي المسال
As
منذ
Qatar has
عقود الخلق
continued to
تمكنا
invest
الآن
in
من
liquefied
الشروع
natural
في
gas
توسعة حقل غاز
for
الشمال
decades now.
والذي سيلعب
We have been
دورا
able
محوريا
to
في التخفيف
expand
من
the
أزمة
North gas
نقص
field.
إمدادات
This will
الطاقة
play a
في
significant
أجزاء
role
مهمة
in
في العالم.
alleviating the energy crisis in many parts of the
ثمة
world.
سلع مثل الطاقة والغذاء
When
والدواء
it comes to
تحمل
basic
مصدريها
commodities such as
مسؤولية
energy,
تتجاوز المسؤولية التجارية
food, and
وذلك
medication,
بدءا بالموثوقية
exporters
واحترام
bear a very
العهود
special responsibility
ومن
that
ناحية أخرى
exceeds
لا
commercial
يجوز
responsibility. They must be
حظر
reliable
مرور
and
مثل
they
هذه
must
السلع
respect
أو منع
agreements.
تصديرها أو
Banning
استيرادها
the
في مراحل
transit of
الأزمات
these
السياسية
commodities, banning their export
وفرض
or
الحصار
import
على
during
الدول
times of political crisis and imposing blockades on
وبالدرجة
affected countries
ذاتها لا
is not
يجوز
acceptable,
استخدامها
just
أداة
as it
في
is not
النزاعات.
acceptable to use these
فهي ليست
commodities
سلاحا
as
تماما
tools of
مثل
war,
ما لا
tools
يجوز
of
التحكم
conflict.
بمصادر
They are
المياه
not weapons.
كأنها
It is equally
أدوات
unacceptable
سياسية.
to use
السيد الرئيس
water
قد
sources as if
ترسم
they were
وقائع
political
العالمنا
tools.
اليوم
Mr.
صورة
President,
قاتمة عن
maybe the
مستقبل
situation of the
الإنسانية
world today paints
ولكننا
a very
نؤمن
bleak picture
بالحوار والعمل
of the
المشترك
future of humanity, but we
ومحاولة
believe
تفهم
in
كل
dialogue
طرف
and
للطرف
joint
الآخر
action,
بأن يحاول أن يضع نفسه في
and
مكانه
all parties
ليرى
attempt
الأمور
to
من منظوره.
understand each other, putting ourselves
والدول
in each other's
الصغيرة
shoes to see
والمتوسطة
things from the
هي
other's
الأكثر حاجة
perspective.
لقواعد
Medium-sized
ثابتة
and small
تنظم العلاقات
countries are
الدولية.
most in need of
فلا
rules
يصح
that govern
أن
international
تكون
relations.
الاتكالية على الدول العظمى سببا في
Relying
التقاعس
on
عن
major
تحقيق
powers should
التواصل
not be a
بيننا.
reason to abandon
لكل منا
communication
دور
among each
يقوم
other.
به.
We all
وما
have a role
يبدو
to
اليوم
play.
مستحيلا
What appears today to be
سيكون
impossible
واقعا إذا
will be a
توفرت
reality
الرؤية
if
والإرادة
we have the
والنوايا
vision,
الحسنة.
the will, and the good intentions.
إن النهج الذي اتخذناه في
The
قطر هو
approach
التركيز على التنمية
pursued by
الوطنية
Qatar is an
والتنمية
approach that
الإنسانية
focuses on
داخليا
national
وعلى
development
السياسة الخارجية القائمة على
domestically
الموازنة بين المصالح
and
والمبادئ
pursuing a foreign policy based
والوساطة
on
في حل النزاعات بالطرق
achieving a
السلمية
balance between principles
وإدراك
and interests.
مسؤوليتنا
We have
كمصدر
also
للطاقة
focused on being a mediator to settle
وهو
disputes
ما
with
مكننا
peaceful
من
means.
ترسيخ
We are aware
سمعتنا
of our
كشريك
responsibility as a
موثوق
source
به
of energy,
دوليا.
and that,
وسوف ترحب قطر
or
بالعالم
rather,
في
we have
نوفمبر
proved
من
to
هذا
be a
العام عندما
reliable
نستضيف
partner.
بطولة كأس العالم.
Qatar will
لقد
welcome the
تطلب
world
التحدي
this year when we
الذي
host the
أقدمنا
World
عليه
Cup
منذ 12
2022.
عاما
The
تصميما
challenge that
وعزما
has started
حقيقيين
12 years ago
والكثير من
required
التخطيط
genuine
والعمل الجاد.
resolve, considerable
وها
planning,
نحن
and
اليوم
hard work. And here we
نقف على
are
أعتاب
today,
استضافة
ready
منتخبات العالم
to
وجماهيرها
receive
ونفتح
teams
أبوابنا
and spectators
لهم
from all
جميعا
around the world.
دون
We're opening
تمييز
our doors in
ليستمتعوا
Doha
بكرة
to them
القدم
without
وأجواء
discrimination so
البطولة
that they can
المفعمة
all
بالحماس وليشهدوا النهضة
enjoy
الاقتصادية
the
والحضارية
excitement so that
في
they can
بلادنا.
all see with their own eyes
في هذه البطولة
the development
التي
that my
تقام
country
لأول
has
مرة في
achieved.
دولة
The
عربية
World Cup
ومسلمة
is being organized for
ولأول
the
مرة
first
في
time
الشرق
in a
الأوسط
Muslim
عموما
Arab country
سيرى العالم أن
and
إحدى
the first
الدول
time
الصغيرة
in the Middle East
والمتوسطة
generally.
قادرة على
The world will
استضافة
see that
أحداث
medium-sized
عالمية
and small
بنجاح
countries are
استثنائي
able to host
كما أنها
global
قادرة
events
على أن
with great
تقدم
success.
فضاء
Those
مريحا
countries
للتنوع
are
والتفاعل
able
البناء
to
بين الشعوب
create an environment
ونحن نلاحظ مؤشرات
conducive to
أثر الإيجابي لهذا
interaction among
الحدث
the
في
peoples of the
منطقتنا
world.
فقد قامت دول عربية
This
شقيقة
event has
باعتبار
already had
بطاقة
a
هيئة
positive effect.
التي تشمل
Brotherly
تأشيرة
Arab
الدخول
nations
إلى
have
قطر
welcomed
تأشيرة
the
للدخول
so-called
إلى تلك
Haya
الدول
card,
أيضا
which offers a
ما
visa
قوبل
to enter
بترحيب
Qatar
الرأي
and
العام
also to enter other
وحفز
Arab
الشعوب
countries.
العربية
This
على
card
التطلع
was
إلى مستقبل تزول
welcomed
فيه
by the
الحواجز
public as
بين
well, and it
الشعوب
has also incentivized Arab nations to look forward to
وسوف
a
يفتح الشعب
future where there
القطري
are no
ذراعيه
barriers among the
لاستقبال محبي
peoples.
كرة القدم على اختلاف مشاربهم يقول
The Qatari
تعالى
people will
وجعلناكم
open its
شعوبا
arms to welcome
وقبائل
football
لتعارفوا
fans from all around the world.
ومهما
I quote the
تنوعت
Holy Quran.
قومياتنا
We created
وأدياننا
you
وأفكارنا
as races and tribes so
واجبنا
that
هو
you
أن
can get to
نتجاوز
know
العوائق
each other,
وأن
regardless of
نمد يد
our
الصداقة
different
ونبني
religions, our
جسور
different
التفاهم
ideologies. Our duty is to
ونحتفي
overcome these
بإنسانيتنا
barriers, to extend
المشتركة
the hand of friends, to build
ونيابة
friendship,
عن
to
شعبي
build
وبالأصالة عن
the
نفسي
bridges of
أدعوكم جميعا
understanding. On
للحضور إلى
behalf of
قطر
my country,
والاستمتاع بهذه البطولة
I
الفريدة
invite you all to come to
فمرحبا
Qatar and
بالجميع
to enjoy
والسلام
this
عليكم ورحمة
unique
الله وبركاته.
World Cup. I welcome you all. May the peace, mercy,
On behalf
and
of
blessings
the
of God be
Assembly,
upon you.
I wish to thank the Emir of the State of Qatar for the statement just made, and I request the protocol to escort His Highness. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Yoon Suk-yeol, President of the Republic of Korea. I request the protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome His Excellency Yoon Suk-yeol, President of the Republic of Korea, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
의장님,
Mr.
사무총장님,
President, Mr. Secretary
각국 대표
General,
여러분,
distinguished delegates,
처벅 허러쉬
I offer my
총회
sincere
의장님의 취임을
congratulations to His
축하합니다.
Excellency Mr. Chobak
의장님의
Karashi,
리더십
assuming the
하에
presidency of the
이번
UN General Assembly.
제77차
I hope that
UN
the
총회가
77th session of the UNGA,
더 나은
under
세계를
your
향해
leadership, will bring together
회원국들의
the
지혜를
wisdom of
모으는
each member
계기가
state so
되기를
as to
바랍니다.
shape a better world.
특히 올해
I
두
also
번째
express my
임기를
deepest
시작한
respect to Mr.
안토니오
Secretary
구테레스
General Antonio
사무총장님의
Guterres for his
헌신과
tireless
노력에
devotion as
경의를
he
표합니다.
embarks upon his second term.
유엔 헌장은
Under the United
더 많은
Nations
자유
Charter, we are
속에서
called upon to endeavor
사회적
to
진보와
promote social progress
생활
and
수준의
better standards of
향상을
life in
촉진할
larger
것을
freedom,
천명하고 있습니다. 또한
and to
국제
unite
평화와
our strength
안전을
to
유지하기
maintain
위한
international peace
인류의
and
연대를
security.
촉구하고 있습니다. 한 국가
When
내에서
freedom of any
어느
individual
개인의
in a
자유가
nation comes under
위협받을 때
threat, members of the
공동체
community
구성원들이
must join
연대해서
hands to remove
그
the
위협을
threat and
제거하고
defend freedom.
자유를 지켜야 하듯이 국제사회에서도
Likewise, when
어느
freedom
세계
of any
시민이나
citizen or nation in
국가의
the global
자유가
community
위협받을
is
때
in peril, it is the
국제사회가
community of nations
연대하여
that must
그
stand together
자유를
in
지켜야
solidarity
합니다.
to defend that freedom.
우리들의 현대사는
Our modern history
이렇게
testifies to the
힘을
process of
합쳐
our solidarity and
자유를
unity
지키고
in safeguarding freedom
문명적 진보를
and pushing
이룩해온
our
과정을
civilization
보여주고
forward.
있습니다. 오늘날 국제사회는
Today,
힘에 의한
plagued by the
현상
attempts to
변경과
alter the status quo by
핵무기를
force,
비롯한
nuclear
대량
and other weapons of
살상무기,
mass destruction,
인권의
and systemic
집단적
violations
유린으로
of human rights,
또다시
the global
세계
community
시민의
is yet
자유와
again witnessing
평화가
freedom and
위협받고
peace of its
있습니다.
citizens put in jeopardy.
이러한 자유와 평화에
Such
대한 위협은
threats to freedom and peace
유엔과
must be overcome
국제사회가
through solidarity
그동안
and
축적해온
fearless commitment
보편적
to the
국제
framework
규범
of
체계를
universal global
강력히
norms
지지하고
consolidated over the
연대함으로써
years
극복해
within the
나아가야
United
합니다.
Nations system.
이번 유엔
The
총회의
theme of the
주제인
UNGA session this
분수령의
year,
시점은
the watershed
우리가
moment,
직면한 글로벌
encapsulates
위기의
the gravity
심각성을
of the
대변함과
global
동시에
crisis confronting us,
유엔의 역할이
which
그 어느
underscores
때보다
the solemn
막중하다는
role
것을
of the
의미합니다.
United Nations.
우리가 직면한
The
위기를
first
극복하고
step in our journey
해결책을
to seek
모색하는
answers
출발점은
that will help us through
우리가
these
그동안
turbulent
보편적으로
times begins
받아들이고
with
축적해온
solidarity and
국제
deference
규범
to the
체계와
universally accepted
UN
global
시스템을
norms as well
존중하고
as the UN
연대하는
system
것입니다.
established over the past decades.
의장님,
Mr. President,
사무총장님,
Mr. Secretary
각국
General,
대표 여러분,
and honorable delegates.
인류가
As humanity
진정한 자유와
strives to
평화에
defend
다가가기
freedom
위해서도
and build
유엔의
lasting
역할이
peace,
매우
the
중요합니다.
UN's role is indispensable.
진정한 자유는
Genuine
속박에서
freedom is
벗어나는
not
것만이
just being
아니라
free from the shackles,
자아를
but
인간답게
having
실현할 수
opportunities to
있는
live
기회를
life
갖는
to the
것이고
fullest with
진정한
dignity.
평화는
Genuine peace
단지
is not
전쟁이
an
없는
absence
상태가
of
아니라
war,
인류
By
공동
removing
번영의
conflict
발목을
and
잡는
enmity that hold back
갈등과
shared
반목을
progress of
해소하고
humanity
인류가
and
더
building
번영할 수
the
있는
foundation
토대를
for
갖추는
greater
것입니다.
prosperity of humanity.
진정한 자유와 평화는
Genuine freedom and peace
질병과
can turn
기아로부터의
into
자유,
reality when we are
문맹으로부터의
free
자유,
from disease and hunger,
에너지와 문화의
free from
결핍으로부터의
illiteracy,
자유를
and
통해
free from want
실현될
of
수
energy
있습니다.
and culture.
유엔은 이러한
this
문제의
regard,
해결을 위해
The United
UN
Nations
경제사회
has been
이사회,
exerting great
유네스코 등을
endeavors
통해
through the UN
많은
ECOSOC
노력을
and UNESCO, among
해왔습니다만
others.
이제
Yet,
더 폭넓은
it is now
역할과
urged
책임을
to take on
요구받고
a
있습니다.
broader role and responsibility.
팬데믹 문제의
To
해결을
tackle the
위해서는
challenges brought on by the
유엔을 중심으로
pandemic,
한
the UN
국제사회의
must play
협력으로
a central role
재정
in bringing the
여건과
community of
기술력이
nations together
미흡한 나라에
to decisively step
지원이
up
더욱
their support
과감하게
for countries
이루어져야
with
합니다.
limited fiscal space and technical
탈탄소라는
expertise.
지구적
In
과제를
pursuit of the global
추진함에
agenda
있어
for
녹색
decarbonization,
기술의
countries with
선도국가는
leading green technologies
신재생
must
에너지
work
기술 등을
to
더
unsparingly share
많은
new
국가들과
and renewable energy
공유하도록
technologies
노력하고
with other
지원을 아끼지
countries.
않아야 합니다. 특히
In the era
디지털
of
심화
digital
시대에
sophistication,
디지털 격차는
one of the most
국가 간의
urgent
양극화를
tasks for the
가중시키기
global
때문에
community and the
유엔을
UN
중심으로
is
한
promoting global
국제사회의
cooperation
협력이
to narrow the
매우
digital
중요한
divide, which
과제가
exacerbates polarization between
디지털
nations.
기술 선도국가는
Countries at the forefront
대도국의
of digital
디지털
innovation
교육과
must offer
기술
broader
전수,
assistance for digital
투자에
education, technology
더욱 많은
transfer,
지원을 해야 하고
and
유엔은
investment.
이를
While the
이끄는
UN
노력을
must redouble its
배가하여야
efforts
합니다.
to mobilize support to that end.
의장님, 사무총장님,
Mr. President,
각국
Mr.
대표
Secretary
여러분,
General, and distinguished delegates,
대한민국은
the Republic
최근
of Korea,
긴축 재정에도
notwithstanding the
불구하고
recent fiscal consolidation,
구조 조정을
scaled up
통해
support for
마련한
those who are
재원으로
in need with resources
사회적
secured
약자에
through
대한
expenditure
지원과
restructuring.
ODA
At home, we're
예산을
offering more assistance to
늘렸습니다.
socially vulnerable groups, and abroad,
사회적
we
약자에
increase
대한
our official
지원
development
확대가
assistance budget.
지속
Just as
가능한
broadening
번영의
support for
기반이
the
되는
socially
것과
disadvantaged
마찬가지로
groups lays the groundwork for sustainable
국제사회에서
prosperity.
어려운 나라에 대한
Support for
지원은
nations of the world facing
세계의
challenges
자유와
will
평화를
render global
지속
freedom and
가능하게
peace
만들
more
것입니다.
sustainable.
대한민국은
As a
국제사회의 책임
responsible
있는
member of the
일원으로서
international community,
세계
Korea
시민의
is
자유와
committed to playing its due
국제사회의
responsibility
번영을
and
위해
role for the freedom
책임과
of global
역할을
citizens
다할
and
것입니다.
prosperity of the global community.
대한민국은 코로나 치료제와
Korea has
백신의
accelerated
연구
research
개발에
development for
박차를 가하는
COVID-19
동시에
therapeutics and
액트의
vaccines,
이니셔티브에
pledging
$3억 달러,
$300 million toward
세계은행의
the Act A initiative and $30 billion to the Financial Intermediary
글로벌
Fund of the World
보건체계
Bank, among
강화를
others,
위한
thereby
기여를
expanding its contributions
확대하고
to building a
있습니다.
more robust global health architecture.
세계보건기구의 팬데믹
We're also
협약
taking part
체결을
in
위한
negotiations to
협상에도
reach a
참여
pandemic
중이며
accord under the
오늘
World
11월
Health Organization.
미래 감염병
To
대응을
ensure a
위한
more effective
글로벌
response to
보건
future
안보
infectious disease
부상 강요
outbreaks,
회의를
Korea will host
서울에서
a ministerial
개최할
meeting of the
것입니다.
global health security agenda
아울러
in Seoul this
대한민국은
November.
글로벌
In
감염병
addition, Korea will
대응이라는
remarkably
인류
increase its
공동과제
contribution
해결을
to the global
적극
fund,
동참하기
joining
위해
forces with our
글로벌
partners
펀드에
in
대한
our fight
기여를
against infectious
획기적으로
diseases,
확대하기로
including
했습니다.
AIDS, tuberculosis, and
기후변화
malaria.
문제에 관해서도
Turning to the issue of climate
대한민국은
change,
그린
Korea
ODA를
will scale up
확대하고
its green
개발
ODA,
도상국의
help developing countries
저탄소 에너지
transition to a
전환을
low-carbon
도울
future,
것이며 혁신적
and share
녹색
its
기술을
innovative green
모든
technologies
인류와
with
공유하기
the
위해
entire
노력할 것입니다.
humanity.
대한민국은 이미 오래전부터
Over the years,
전자
Korea has
정부
been
디지털 기술을
transferring and
대도국을
sharing its
비롯한 많은 나라에
e-government digital technology
이전하고
with developing
공유해
countries
왔습니다.
and many others.
대한민국은 지금
The Korean
디지털
government
플랫폼
is
정부를
pushing
추진하고
forward
있습니다.
with its plan to transform
디지털
itself
기술로
into a digital platform government.
민주주의와
It is an
행정
ambitious
서비스,
initiative to
그리고
remarkably
복지
upgrade our
서비스를
democracy, public
획기적으로
service,
업그레이드
and
시키는
welfare through
원대한
digital
시도입니다.
technology.
앞으로 이러한 디지털
We will
기술과
continue to
데이터를
more widely
더 많이
share our advanced
공유하고
digital technology
지원과
and
교육
data
투자에
and spare no
노력을
effort in
아끼지
providing support
않겠습니다.
and in investing in education. Mr. President,
사무총장님,
Mr.
각국
Secretary
대표
General,
여러분,
distinguished
우리가
delegates,
직면하고 있는 글로벌
as we
위기에
seek
대한
answers to the global
해결책으로
crisis we're
유엔
faced with,
시스템과
the viability of
보편적
the UN
국제
system
규범 체계가
and the universal global
과연
norms
유용한 것인지에
architecture
관해
is now
지금 현재
under
시험대에 올라
test.
있다고 할 수 있습니다. 그러나 우리가 현재
The
직면하고
crisis
있는 이
confronting
위기는
us will only be
자유라는
resolved
보편적 가치를
when we stand
공유하고
firmly in
자유를
solidarity
지키고 확장하기
to
위해
share the universal
함께
value of
노력해야
freedom
한다는
and work together
확고한
to uphold
연대의
and
정신으로
spread
해결할
our
수
freedom.
있습니다. 그러므로 자유와
In this
연대의
vein,
정신에 입각한
we must more
유엔의
firmly support
시스템과
the system of
그동안
the UN
보편적으로
anchored in a spirit
국제사회에서
of freedom and
인정받아온
solidarity,
규범
as
체계가
well as the normative
더욱
frameworks
강력하게
that have
지지되어야
thus been
합니다.
universally
유엔
recognized in the
시스템과
international
보편적
community.
규범
Any
체계에
attempt to
등을
turn
돌리고
away from the
이탈하게
UN system
된다면
and universal norms
국제사회는
will
블록화되고
divide the global
그
community
위기와
into blocks,
혼란은
further
더욱 가중될
compounding
것입니다.
the crisis and turmoil.
우리가 직면하고 있는 문제의
We
본질과
must more
원인에
rigorously
대해서
identify the nature and the
치열하게
roots of the
고민하고
problems that lie before us.
국제사회가 그
The
해결을 위해
international community
역할을
must
분담하고
vigorously endeavor
힘을 합치는
to share
노력들이
responsibility
더욱
and join
강력하게
whenever necessary
실행되어야
forces
합니다.
to resolve the challenges we
이러한
face.
전환기적
Once
위기의
again,
해결책으로서
I call upon global
세계
citizens and
시민과
leaders of the world
국제사회의
for
리더
their
여러분들께
resolute and
유엔
enduring
시스템과
support for the
보편적
UN
국제
system
규범 체계에
and
대한
universal global norms
확신에 찬 지지를
as we seek
다시
answers
한번
in this
호소합니다.
watershed moment.
의장님,
Mr. President,
사무총장님,
Mr.
각국
Secretary
대표
General,
여러분,
distinguished delegates,
돌이켜보면 유엔이
the
창립된
very
직후
first mission of the
세계
United
평화를
Nations
위한
after its
첫
founding
번째 의미 있는 미션은
was
대한민국을
to approve the
한반도의
Republic of
유일한
Korea as
합법적으로
the sole
승인하고
legitimate government
유엔군을
on the Korean
파견하여
Peninsula and to
대한민국의
defend
자유를
the freedom
수호하는
of my
것이었습니다.
country by sending over
이러한
UN
유엔의 노력
forces
덕분에
during the Korean War.
대한민국은
Thanks to
이렇게
such efforts
성장할
by the
수
United
있었습니다.
Nations, Korea was able to
그러므로
become what it is
대한민국은
today.
세계
As such,
시민의 자유
the Republic
수호와
of
확대
Korea will protect
그리고
and expand
평화와
the freedom of
번영을
global
위해
citizens.
유엔과
And
함께
together with the United
책임을
Nations,
다하겠습니다.
we will fulfill our
감사합니다.
responsibilities to promote peace and prosperity around the world. Thank you.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Korea for the statement just made, and I request the protocol to escort His Excellencies. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Mario Abdul Benitez, President of the Republic of Paraguay. I request protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome His Excellency Mario Abdul Benitez, President of the Republic of Paraguay, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Señor Presidente de la Asamblea General,
President of the General
señor
Assembly,
Secretario General,
Secretary General,
Excelencias, Jefes de Estado,
Excellencies,
señoras y
Heads of
señores.
State, ladies and gentlemen,
Este tradicional
this
encuentro
traditional meeting
nos convoca con la enorme
brings us together
responsabilidad
with the great
de
responsibility
intercambiar
of
ideas y
exchanging
generar
ideas and
compromisos
generating
para
commitments
afianzar
to secure
esta esfera pública intergubernamental
intergovernmental public
tan
sphere, which
necesaria
is so necessary
para dar respuestas
to provide
a las
responses
urgencias
to the
comunes de
shared
nuestras naciones.
crises facing our
En
nations.
esta última intervención como jefe
At
de
this,
Estado,
my final appearance
en este
here
recinto,
as head of state,
quiero remarcar
I wish
el
to
compromiso que
underscore
tiene
the
la
commitment
República
of
del
the Republic
Paraguay
of Paraguay
como integrante de la
as a
comunidad
member of the international
internacional
community
de seguir contribuyendo
to continue
en la construcción
contributing
de
to
un
building
mundo
a world
con pleno
which
respeto a las
fully
libertades
upholds
fundamentales,
fundamental freedoms,
a la resolución pacífica
peaceful
de los
conflict
conflictos,
resolution,
condiciones de vida digna para toda la
dignified living
humanidad
conditions for all,
y la lucha inflexible
and
contra el
an
crimen
unwavering
organizado.
fight against organized crime.
Todos estos ámbitos están
All
marcados
of these areas
por
are
factores de
affected
orden
by
mundial.
factors of a global scale.
Las consecuencias económicas y sociales de la
Before the
pandemia
economic and social consequences of the
seguían
pandemic had entirely
desperdigadas en el
dissipated,
aire
already we were
cuando
faced with the
empezamos
impact
a recibir el
of
impacto del
belligerence
contexto
in the
bélico
international
internacional.
context.
Así nuestros pueblos se
Our
encontraron
peoples,
en la
therefore,
difícil situación
faced the difficult
de observar la
situation of
insuficiencia de las
observing the
instituciones
shortcomings
nacionales
of
e
national and
internacionales
international
para
institutions
enfrentar las
in tackling
emergencias.
emergencies.
En tales circunstancias,
In such
el primer gran
circumstances,
desafío que
the
tenemos
main challenge that we
consiste
have
en contener los
consists
estallidos
of
de
containing
proyectos
the
que manipulando
unleashing
la
of projects
genuina
which manipulate
irritación
genuine
ciudadana
public
avanzan
annoyance to
con
advance
acciones
demagogical
demagógicas
and
y
despotic
despóticas,
actions.
y no podemos dar
And we
cabida
cannot
a
have any
discursos
truck
que
with
busquen
discourse
con
which
ofertas
seeks, by
engañosas
misleading,
sacrificar
to sacrifice
la sagrada
liberty.
libertad. El mundo requiere más que
The
nunca
world
templanza,
requires more
diálogo
than
y
ever
moderación.
temperance, dialogue, and moderation.
Vivimos tiempos
We are
que
living in
demandan
times which
compromisos
require
políticos concretos
tangible
y no
political
actitudes genéricas.
commitment and not
Más
generic
aún
approaches.
en los años posteriores a la pandemia,
All the more
que se
so in the
proyectan
post-pandemic
difíciles
years,
y
which are likely to be
requerirán
difficult
reformas
and which
complejas
will require
que
complex
deben
reforms
blindarse
which
de falsas
avoid
promesas.
false promises.
En América Latina, siendo una de las regiones
Latin
más
America is one
afectadas
of
por
the
la
regions
coyuntura,
most affected by the
debemos
current
estar
situation.
predispuestos a adoptar
So we must
posiciones de
be
principio
able
que
to
se
adopt
alineen
positions of
con la
principle which are in
preocupación
line
por la plena vigencia de
with
los
our
derechos
concern for the full
humanos y el
implementation of human
autogobierno
rights and collective
colectivo.
self-governance.
Sin embargo, estas
However,
posturas tienen
such
que
stances
inscribirse
must be part
en un
of
plano
a broad
amplio de
plan
cooperación
of
en
cooperation,
el que los países
wherein
mejor posicionados
those countries who
sean
are
conscientes
better
del
placed
desequilibrio que
remain aware
caracteriza
of the
al planeta
imbalance
en todos sus
characterized
ámbitos.
by the planet in all
Debemos brindar estabilidad al
spheres.
mundo con
We
una
must
voz
provide
común.
stability to the world with a
No
common
podemos
voice.
correr la
We
vista
cannot
de lo
avert
que
our
sucede en
eyes
otros
to what is
territorios
happening in other
y dejar a su
countries
suerte
and
a
leave
naciones
brotherly
hermanas.
nations to their fate.
Por ello, Paraguay es un país solidario
Therefore,
que mantiene
we are
coherencia con
a
sus
country
principios.
which represents solidarity and
Hemos
which stays
apoyado
true to our
siempre
principles
al
in
hermano
Paraguay.
pueblo
We have always
venezolano y
supported
a su lucha
the
por la
kindred
democracia.
country of
Por eso
Venezuela
Paraguay estará
and
liderando
the people's
en el
fight for their
Consejo de
democracy.
Derechos Humanos
In the Human
junto con
Rights
otros
Council,
países
Paraguay, along
una
with other
resolución
countries, is
que
therefore
permitirá
leading
seguir
a
investigando a
resolution which will allow
profundidad
for a
la violación
continued
de los derechos
in-depth
humanos en
investigation into
Venezuela.
violations of human rights in Venezuela.
Necesitamos reconstruir una conciencia
We must
moral
rebuild a
sobre la
moral
vigencia de los
awareness
derechos
of the
humanos
continued
y
validity
la
of human
democracia.
rights and democracy.
Los instrumentos jurídicos y las
The
instituciones que
legal
hemos creado
instruments and the
para
institutions which we
protegerlos
have created to
tienen un
protect
valor
these are
innegable.
of
Sin
unquestionable
embargo,
value.
el elemento
However,
fundamental para
the
custodiar
fundamental element
a las
when
personas
safeguarding people
sigue siendo
continues to
consolidar
be a
una
consolidation
concepción
of the concept
respecto
of
al valor superior
the
de su
overarching
dignidad,
value of their dignity,
inviolabilidad
inviolability,
y autonomía.
and autonomy.
La difícil coyuntura actual
Today's
nos
difficult
demanda abordar
context
los problemas
requires that we
mundiales
tackle global
de forma
problems together
conjunta, sin
with no
exclusiones.
exclusions.
Por ello, mi país
In this regard,
reitera
my
enfáticamente
country
el apoyo
underscores
a la
our
solicitud
support for
de la
the request
República
of the
de China,
Republic of
Taiwán,
China,
para ser
Taiwan,
parte integral del
to be a
sistema
full
de las
member
Naciones
of the
Unidas.
United Nations system.
Estamos
We
convencidos
are convinced
del
of the
valioso
valuable
aporte que
contribution
implica
that
su
its participation
participación
would make
en el sistema
to the
multilateral.
multilateral system.
Aprovecho el momento
I take this opportunity
para expresar mi
to
solidaridad
express my
por el
solidarity
terremoto que
following
acaba
the
de afectar
earthquake which has
al
recently
pueblo
hit the
taiwanés
Taiwanese people
y los diferentes episodios vividos
and
en
the
México, en
various
República Dominicana
events
y en Puerto Rico.
following this in the Dominican Republic,
El
Mexico, and
Paraguay
Puerto Rico.
se adhiere a la inmensa mayoría de
Paraguay
países
aligns
que
itself
abogan
with the
por la
great
paz,
majority of
el
countries
imperio del
advocating
derecho
for
internacional
peace, the rule of
y la
international
prevalencia
law,
de la
and
diplomacia.
prevailing diplomacy.
Nos preocupa la situación en
We are
Ucrania
disquieted
y las
regarding the situation
consecuencias
in Ukraine and the
humanitarias y
humanitarian
económicas del
consequences
conflicto.
and the economic consequences
Hacemos
of
un
the
llamado
conflict.
enérgico
We urgently
al
call
cese de las
for a
hostilidades
cessation of
y a la
hostilities
reanudación
and a
de las
resumption of the
negociaciones.
negotiations.
Es fundamental que
It
nuestra
is
organización
fundamental that our
y la comunidad
organization and the
internacional
international
en
community
general
in general
participen
participate
intensamente
unreservedly
en este
in this
proceso.
process.
De cara a este escenario,
Against this
es inevitable
backdrop, we
señalar
cannot but
el
highlight
escrutinio
the scrutiny
sobre el papel
of
que le
the
corresponde
Security
al
Council's
Consejo
role
de Seguridad
in this
en el
delicate
delicado
international
contexto
context.
internacional. Es imperioso repensar
There is an
su
urgent need to
funcionamiento para
rethink its
orientarlo
functioning
hacia
so
un
as to steer
desempeño
it
efectivo
towards
así
effective
como
performance
fortalecer el
and
rol de la
to
Asamblea
bolster the role
General
of the General
como
Assembly
espacio de
as a space
canalización
to channel the
de la palabra
voices
de todos los
of all
estados.
states.
Otro tema que nos convoca en términos de
Another area
cooperación
of importance
es la
in
salud
terms of
del sistema
cooperation is the
financiero
health of the
internacional.
international financial
No es
system.
posible seguir
We
hablando
cannot
de
continue
iniciativas
talking about
globales
global
para erradicar la
initiatives to
pobreza y
eradicate
promover el
poverty and
desarrollo
promote sustainable
sostenible
development
cuando
when
nuestras
our
economías
economies
se ven
are being
contaminadas
contaminated
por la
by the
diseminación
flow of
de ganancias
profits
provenientes
from
de las
illicit
actividades
activities.
ilícitas. Recientemente Paraguay recibió
Recently,
noticias
Paraguay
satisfactorias
received pleasing
del Grupo
news
de Acción
from the
Financiera de
Financial Action Group
Latinoamérica
of Latin
al
America,
haber superado su
following their
evaluación
evaluation,
gracias al trabajo
thanks to
conjunto
the
de modernización
joint
de
work
nuestra estructura
of the
institucional
modernization of
para
our
el combate al
institutional
lavado de
structure to
dinero
combat
y el
money laundering
financiamiento del
and
terrorismo.
terrorist financing.
Somos un país comprometido con la
We are a
cooperación
country which is committed
y
to
entendemos la
cooperation, and we
importancia
understand the
de
importance
adoptar
of
medidas
adopting
preventivas y
preventative and
sancionatorias.
punitive measures.
Esa es una tarea
This is a
en la que
task
ningún
which
Estado
no
debería
state
estar
should
fuera
neglect
o mantener
or
una
waver
posición
from.
tenue. El imperio de la ley
The rule of
es un
law
objetivo
is a
global
global
que está más
objective
allá de las
which goes
concepciones
beyond
políticas
political
y
beliefs.
quien no lo concibe así
And those who do not
conspira
conceive of
contra la
it in
vida en
this way are
comunidad.
jeopardizing community life.
Bajo mi administración,
During my
Paraguay alineó como
administration,
nunca
Paraguay
antes
has
los
coordinated the
esfuerzos
efforts of the
de las
security
instituciones de
institutions
seguridad
as
y
never
las
before.
puso a trabajar
We
en la
tasked
mayor
them with the
operación de la
greatest
historia
operation
contra
in
el crimen
history to
organizado.
target organized crime.
Ese éxito se debió no solo a
This
la labor de
success was
nuestras
due not
fuerzas
only
públicas,
to our own
sino
state
también al
forces
trabajo
and their
coordinado
efforts, but
que
also
se llevó adelante con
coordinated
agencias
work
extranjeras
done
amigas,
with friendly
con quienes comprobamos de
agencies
nuevo
abroad, where
la
we were able
importancia
once
de
again
unir
to attest to the
energías
importance of
si
joining
queremos lograr
forces if we wish to achieve
resultados contra los
results
grupos
against criminal
delictivos.
groups.
Así también, en colaboración con
Moreover,
agencias de
in
inteligencia,
cooperation with intelligence
determinamos y
agencies,
alertamos
we
el
detected
recorrido
and
de
raised
un
the
avión
alert
y su
regarding the
tripulación
flight of an
señalada
aeroplane and
de
its
estar
crew
vinculada al
who had been
terrorismo
flagged with
internacional.
links to international terrorism.
Otro escenario de cooperación
Another front
es el campo
for
del desarrollo
cooperation is the
sostenible.
area of sustainable
Paraguay,
development.
como parte del motor mundial de
Paraguay, as
generación de
part of the
alimentos,
global food
viene
production
avanzando
machine,
en la
is making
transformación de
headway
su
in
matriz
transforming
productiva,
its production
la ejecución de
matrix,
prácticas
as well as the
sostenibles
implementation
en la
of
producción
sustainable
agrícola y
practices in
ganadera
crop and
y el
livestock
aprovechamiento de
and
su
the provision
energía
of energy, which is
100%
100%
limpia y
clean and
renovable.
renewable.
Pero para que todos nuestros
But
impulsos
for all of
realmente
these
adquieran
efforts to be
sentido,
truly meaningful,
necesitamos que los países
we need
que por
those
sus
countries
características
whose
tienen mayor
own
responsabilidad
characteristics shoulder them with
actúen
the
en
greatest
consecuencia.
responsibility to act
Habitamos
accordingly.
el mismo
We are
planeta
living on the
y
same
tenemos la
planet,
obligación de cuidar la
and we are
naturaleza
part
y el
of the
futuro de nuestras
obligation to
generaciones.
protect nature, which falls
Y
to
eso
each
compete en
state.
su justa medida a cada Estado. Por eso Paraguay, junto a otros
Paraguay,
países,
therefore, along with other
promovió la
countries,
creación
has
de
promoted the
un
creation
relator
of a special
especial sobre
rapporteur
cambio
on climate
climático
change
en el
in
Consejo
the Human
de
Rights
Derechos
Council.
Humanos, que contribuirá
This will
a
contribute to
visibilizar
making the
el
true
verdadero
impact
impacto
of the
que tiene esta
crisis more
crisis a nivel
visible
mundial.
at a global level.
La apuesta por el Paraguay sigue creciendo
Paraguay's
cada día
commitment is
más,
continually increasing,
además de encontrarnos
as
entre
well
los
as being
5
one of the
países
5
de la
countries of the
región que lograron
region which has
incrementar la
achieved
inversión extranjera
an
directa
increase in foreign
durante la
direct
pandemia.
investment during the pandemic.
Pudimos duplicar la
We have
inversión
also
privada
doubled our
en los
private
últimos 4
investment over
años.
the last 4 years.
Hace unos meses vimos mejorada
The
nuestra
firm
perspectiva
Moody's improved
crediticia
our credit
según la firma
outlook a
Moody's,
few months ago.
hecho que se
And this
corresponde
is
con
in
la
line
histórica,
with the
sensata y
historic,
estable
prudent,
administración
and
de nuestra
stable
economía.
administration of our economy.
Somos parte del corredor
We are
logístico
part
y
of the most
económico más
important
importante de América del
logistical and
Sur.
economic corridor in South
Paralelamente,
America.
seguimos desplegando
Moreover,
un
we are
plan de
continuing to
infraestructura sin
deploy an
precedentes
unprecedented
que permite
infrastructure
mayor
plan,
conectividad
which will allow
y
for
acceso a
greater
los mercados.
connectivity and market access.
Como puede verse,
As you can
a pesar de los difíciles
despite
desafíos
the
vividos,
testing challenges we
gozamos
have
de
faced,
condiciones que nos hacen
we
mirar
enjoy
el
conditions which
futuro
allow
con
us to look
esperanza.
to the future with hope.
Finalmente,
Finally,
quisiera dejar sentada la
I wish to lay
visión con la
out
que la
the vision
República del
of the
Paraguay se aproxima al mundo,
Republic of Paraguay
más allá de las
for
legítimas
the world.
diferencias que nos
Above and beyond our
caracterizan.
legitimate
Tenemos
differences,
que
we
encontrar
have shared
caminos
challenges
comunes, tenemos
which must
retos comunes
compel
que
us
no